Hey everyone, it's me Squid, and I think I contracted carpal tunnel from playing too much Peggle. It's reasonable why, it's both on my PC and my Xbox, so I can play wherever I go. Now, there are some games that sadly don't get the console treatment, they're left on PC to rot. Now, even though I do have a PC now, I used to only have consoles, so to conquer that, we're going to tap into my past self and look at PC games that I personally want on consoles. There are games that stay exclusive to PC. Consoles aren't the easiest to develop for, so sometimes developers leave them in the dust. However, this leaves a lot of console players left out on some great games. I was one of those people, and at the ripe young age of 11 to 13, my friends were talking about TF2 a lot, and my poor ass only had a Wii U, a Switch, and an Xbox One. What a loser. I mean, I had Macs, but for one, gaming on a Mac is something that never fails to make me absolutely lose it. And two, I don't think my parents wanted me playing violent video games back then. On the other hand, for people that have PCs, they aren't the best for playing portably. The Nintendo Switch is really great to play on because that allows for great games to be played portably, albeit with poor frame rate and not great battery life. I was looking through my Steam library the other day and picked out a few games I had in there that I would love to see on consoles. Here are the ones I chose and why I chose them. Also, before we get into this, while I would love these games to be on all platforms, I'll just be talking in terms of these games coming to the Switch. I would kill for a new Commander Keen game with the art style the series currently has. That would be absolutely amazing, but it's clear that neither Bethesda nor id Software want just anything to do with the franchise. The last we heard from Commander Keen was on E3 2019 when Bethesda just lost it and announced Commander Keen would be making a return in the form of a bad mobile game that we just haven't heard from since. Considering it's 2021 now, I don't think Commander Keen has a future. Commander Keen is on Steam, but just like every classic id Software game except for Doom 1 and 2, the Steam versions run on DOSBox. The games are good and surprisingly have controller support on DOS, but the controls aren't amazing and I'd rather have controls that make a little bit more sense. Actually, the retconned episode of Commander Keen, Keen Dreams, is on the Switch eShop, so it can definitely be done, no doubt about it. Nowadays, the series is used for an excuse to sell a t-shirt. While I would love a new Keen game since it is a platforming series and would be perfect for the Nintendo Switch, the bare minimum would just be cleaning up the DOS games a little bit and putting those on consoles in a collection or whatever. Hell, I would love remakes of these games with new art style, but for now, pixel art is. On October 16th, 2020, Running with Scissors put out a port of Postal Redux for the Switch, and from what I've seen, it's a good port. Redux is already a stellar remake of the 1997 original that improves a lot of the game. And hey, Running with Scissors put out an update to Postal 1997 that adds controller support, native widescreen support, and made the original free so you can save your money on Postal Redux. If they got Postal Redux accepted for the Switch, then really any Postal game can be on the Switch. Postal is known for the FPS gameplay scene in Postal 2 though. Sadly, if I remember correctly, RWS said that Postal 2 is rather unoptimized and would take drastic changes to be ported to consoles. However, I would still be eager for Postal Forward No Regrets to be ported to any consoles, as well as Postal Brain Damaged, a Quake-style Postal game that takes after the darker themes and tones of classic Postal, and is releasing later this year. Speaking of Quake, Quake is an important game in FPS history that only had two console ports, one for the Nintendo 64 that had 4-player multiplayer and another on the Sega Saturn. Quake is so good and would work really well on consoles. I love the low poly models and stuff from Quake, so why not port it over? I think that'd be awesome. They could port Quake 2 and Quake 3, but those games aren't impactful as Quake 1. Although I was originally doubtful about Quake 2, honestly, it would make a good console port. However, it's not looked at in the same light as Quake 1, but I still find Quake 2 to be extremely fun. Quake 3, I don't see working because the game is multiplayer only, and I honestly can't imagine controlling it any way other than good old keyboard and mouse. I just really want to see Quake on consoles or really have the franchise get any attention outside of QuakeCon. You see a pattern yet? It seems Bethesda and id Software only want to focus on Doom. They've completely abandoned their other franchises. The last Wolfenstein game they made was Return to Castle Wolfenstein back in 2001.
Also, the last two Wolf games weren't great, one being online multiplayer exclusive, and the other having a rather meh story. Yeah, Wolfenstein 3D had a release on Xbox Live Arcade, but that's only playable on Xbox 360. Is it the best for a modern console release? Maybe only on the Switch. It'll really only be a 5-minute ROM for Xbox and PlayStation at most. However, I would love to see a modern re-release on this game on PC and Switch, though. This is the best Wolfenstein game, honestly. The single-player campaign is absolutely awesome, and the multiplayer is fantastic. I would love to see this game on every console, and unlike Wolfenstein 3D, this game has just so much more to it. It's already on the PS2 and original Xbox, so really this would just take a little cleaning up to do. I know that the orange box is on Xbox 360 and is backwards compatible with Xbox One and has Xbox One X enhancements, but you'll either need the game disc or you'll need to buy it on Xbox.com. I mainly include this for TF2, but all of Half-Life 2 and Portal haven't been on console since 2007. Also, TF2 hasn't been updated on any console ever, so if you really want to play TF2 on consoles, be prepared for only stock weapons and 6 playable maps. I feel like Valve could port the current version of TF2 for consoles, make some changes to make it feel more at home, and update the game alongside the PC version. Half-Life 2 and Portal as well, those could be optimized for newer consoles, as those are stellar titles. Although in TF2, rocket jumping would be harder than usual, I'm personally acquainted with playing it on controller. Same thing as the orange box, this is another Valve title, and man, it needs a console re-release. Left 4 Dead 2 is the best co-op experience ever, and it would be awesome if it had local multiplayer. At this point, Left 4 Dead 2 is more Left 4 Dead 1 content than Left 4 Dead 1, because of updates and stuff, and those updates have not been released on Xbox 360 yet. So, yeah, Left 4 Dead 2, bring it over. This is a really fun poker game. You play against the heavy from TF2. Need I say more? This is a more unlikely one, as you can't buy the game off of Steam anymore. I had to buy an activation key for the game from a third-party website a while ago. This is because the developer, Telltale Games, doesn't exist anymore, so their games aren't available.
Actually, believe it or not, Telltale Games went back in business in 2019 after being bought out by another company, so that's great.
The first Half-Life was a stellar title for not only changing FPS games, but also incorporating story within the gameplay rather than having cutscenes play everything out. The immersion is insane in this game, and I would love to see Half-Life 1 get a port to any modern console. It already has 2 console ports, with an asterisk. The PS2 version comes with an exclusive expansion, Decay, a 2-player expansion to the Black Mesa story, and the Dreamcast port, while cancelled, was entirely finished and was actually supposed to come with Blue Shift, the expansion where you play as security guard Barney Calhoun, which, unlike Decay, was released on PC. I would love to see all Half-Life 1 games come to consoles. The base game, Blue Shift, Opposing Force, and even though it was never released on PC officially, I would love to see Decay in a port as well. Blood is one of the lesser-known build engine titles. Obviously, the most popular build game is Duke Nukem, and that had a rather lame console port. But Blood had a remaster, and it was pretty good. Atari and Night Dive Studios re-released Blood in December 2018 as Blood Fresh Supply, and it's a decent port. I really like Night Dive ports of games, and Blood is probably the most underrated FPS game of all time.
Now, all of this is my personal opinion, so I don't want to hear you yak about how I missed your favorite Amiga game from the 80s. I only want to talk about games that I have affiliation with. But there's one game that I missed. Peggle Extreme. That's why I made my own console, the Peggle Extreme Box Station. It has a 30 megabyte storage capacity, no external storage support, the best components a PC player can ask for, and comes with Peggle Extreme pre-installed. It's the only game you can play on it.